Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a very careful look at the critical global intelligence developments from the last 2 weeks.
And our focus is squarely on the Middle East.
Exactly. The security environment there is, well, it's being defined by an incredibly fragile ceasefire and some really intense diplomatic maneuvering.
Our mission here is to cut through that complexity. We're analyzing the core patterns that are emerging from the October 2025 ceasefire between Israel and Hamas.
And we're looking at this on 3 different levels, right?
That's right. First, the intense local humanitarian costs, then the competing international proposals for stabilization, and finally, the tectonic shifts in the regional power dynamics.
And as always, we are drawing strictly from the source material you provided, presenting the facts and the varying perspectives without bias.
Or sensationalism.
Before we jump in, we do want to acknowledge our sponsor, ProWave AI.
Their advanced analytical capabilities are absolutely essential, powering some of the most sophisticated security and logistics frameworks around the world.
And this detailed intelligence deep dive is brought to you by Stylo News.
Stylo is the AI-powered news application that's designed to give you rapid, customized intelligence briefs. It synthesizes them from, over 250 global sources?
So you get the full picture and you get it fast. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the immediate, localized fallout from the ceasefire.
Well, the key pattern you see right away is this profound tension.
The tension between what?
Between these symbolic signs of, let's say, closure and the grim reality of the crisis on the ground.
And that's really clear in the exchange of remains.
Painfully clear. It was a somber but, a necessary step. Hamas returned the bodies of 3 hostages, including U.S. citizen Omer Nutra, through the Red Cross.
And also the remains of Lieutenant Hadar Golden.
Yes, who was killed and held since 2014. So for those families, this provides a measure of closure. It's politically significant.
But the shadow of the ongoing crisis, it's immense. The sources are reporting over 69,000 casualties since October 2023.
And critically, 6 hostage bodies are still in Gaza.
Which means the pressure on the ceasefire is it's acutely high.
And the stability is so tenuous because, politically, things have snapped right back to a pre-war status quo in some areas.
What do you mean by that?
Following the Israeli tactical withdrawal, Hamas reasserted local control almost immediately. A November 15th report confirms they're already back to governing.
They're collecting taxes.
Collecting taxes, enforcing order, yes.
Wait, hold on. If the stated goal is the complete disarmament and demilitarization of Hamas, how does their immediate return to tax collection complicate that?
It creates a foundational problem, a huge one. It proves that a simple military withdrawal doesn't create a security vacuum.
Hamas is just stepping right back in.
They're staking a claim. They're showing they're still the de facto authority. And that directly challenges the legitimacy of any external force like the ISF or any governance shift to the Palestinian Authority.
So it makes enforcement exponentially harder.
Exactly.
Okay, amidst this grim political reality, there was at least one positive step on the humanitarian side.
Yes. Israel reopened the Zikim border crossing to northern Gaza.
That was between November 12th and 13th.
And it was a direct, though limited, response to the dire shortages. International bodies, the UN, the World Food Program, they've been sounding the alarm about the nutritional crisis.
So reopening Zikim helps with a critical bottleneck.
It provides a small measure of relief, yes, but it is far from solving the systemic problem of getting unrestricted aid access.
And this cycle of local crisis and limited aid, it leads us directly to the next question. What's the proposed future for Gaza?
Right. That's where the international community is trying to design stability, but all these plans are clashing with deeply entrenched national interests.
The overarching framework for all this is U.S. President Donald Trump's 20-point Gaza peace plan.
Yes, it covers everything from reconstruction funding to security mandates. And the central pillar of that security plan is the International Stabilization Force, the ISF.
Let's define that for everyone. The ISF is a U.S.-led plan for a 2-year multinational force?
Correct, with a very clear, very ambitious mandate.
Which is?
Secure the borders, enforce the complete demilitarization of Gaza, protect civilians, and then train a new, non-militant Palestinian police force.
And what's fascinating is who they're proposing to be in this force.
It's an interesting mix. True commitments have been suggested from Egypt, Turkey, Indonesia, and Azerbaijan.
So key regional and more distant powers.
Right. And this whole effort got a huge boost in diplomatic legitimacy on November 17th, when the UN Security Council approved the U.S. resolution supporting the plan.
That does sound like significant momentum, but we have to note the division there.
You do. Russia and China abstained from that vote.
And that signals what? Ongoing skepticism? A lack of unified backing from the great powers?
Precisely. The U.S. commitment, however, it appears physically substantial.
How so?
Well, sources detail plans for a major U.S. military base near the Gaza border. It's designed to house up to 10,000 personnel.
Specifically to support the ISF?
For logistics, for operations, yes. But crucially, U.S. Central Command was very quick to deny any plans to deploy U.S. troops inside Gaza itself.
Which is a very important diplomatic line to maintain.
It is.
And this brings us straight to the conflicting viewpoints of all the decision makers. The ISF needs regional buy-in, but key players have immediate non-negotiable demands. Let's start with Israel.
Prime Minister Netanyahu and Minister Avi Dichter have been, well, absolutely clear.
Hamas's complete disarmament
Is the non-negotiable precondition. Before any large-scale reconstruction, before any future political arrangement, that has to happen first.
And they also firmly reject Turkish involvement in the ISF.
They do, citing security concerns, fears that Turkey could establish a near-border influence. They don't want a repeat of the errors made in Lebanon back in 2006.
And fundamentally, they reject the concept of Palestinian statehood.
Firmly reject it.
Okay, on the other side, Hamas openly rejects the UN resolution.
They view it as a foreign imposition, a kind of international trusteeship designed to undermine what they call the resistance.
And this opposition isn't just military, it's also diplomatic.
Very much so. The powerful Arab Gulf states, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, they've attached serious conditions to their support.
Money and troops are conditional.
Yes, they're demanding clear security guarantees, and this is crucial, a shift in governance away from Hamas and towards the Ramallah-based Palestinian Authority. They want a political track.
So if Israel rejects Palestinian statehood and Turkish participation, and the Arab states demand governance shifts before they commit funds, how does the U.S. plan to even assemble this force?
That is the core political dilemma.
It sounds like the necessary contributors are rejecting the preconditions set by the key security partner, Israel.
You've hit it exactly. The ISF proposal is structured to secure the end state, demilitarization, but it lacks consensus on the political process to even get there.
And compounding this, you have Western allies on separate tracks.
Right. France, for example, just committed this past week to helping the Palestinian Authority draft a constitution for a future state.
Which aligns France with over 140 countries that already recognize Palestinian statehood.
A direct public contrast to the Israeli government's stated policy.
This complexity just underscores how these stabilization efforts can't be isolated. Let's shift our focus to the broader geopolitical patterns, the reshaping of diplomatic maps.
The push for normalization is still a very high priority for the U.S., especially under the Abraham Accords framework.
And Kazakhstan joined the Accords this past week.
Which is significant. It signals the expansion of these agreements into Central Asia. That's a big diplomatic success.
And President Trump is also aggressively pursuing the biggest prize of all, Saudi normalization.
But the Saudi Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, he's remaining cautious.
His condition hasn't changed.
It's consistent and it's public. A clear, credible path toward Palestinian statehood. And that demand links this whole regional diplomatic expansion right back to the conflict in Gaza. Adding even more friction to this is the rapidly rising influence of Turkey.
Turkey is actively increasing its military presence and its humanitarian footprint, not just in Gaza, but in Syria as well. And Israeli security analysts are viewing this as an urgent multi-front threat.
They are. They see it as something that fundamentally challenges Israel's decades-old defense doctrine.
Why is Turkey's involvement seen as such a paradigm shift?
It's about projecting influence, challenging traditional spheres of control. Turkey is using humanitarian aid and reconstruction promises as a form of soft power.
And strategically?
Strategically, it challenges Israel's maritime defense structure. It introduces a sophisticated NATO-trained military power with deep regional ties into a space Israel has traditionally controlled.
And Turkey's position
is that it has a fundamental regional right to participate in any stabilization efforts in Gaza.
We also have to address the serious intelligence findings that were reported in 2024 related to the conflict.
Yes. The U.S. intelligence that revealed Israeli military lawyers had internally warned of evidence that could potentially support war crimes charges.
And the U.S. response to this is, of course, crucial for impartiality.
Absolutely. The intelligence prompted intense debate, but U.S. legal counsel ultimately concluded there was insufficient evidence of intentional targeting of civilians.
Not enough to legally justify halting U.S. military support.
Correct. And the current Trump administration has subsequently aligned its policy even more strongly with Israel's positions on the matter.
Despite all this tension, there have been a few momentary de-escalation points worth noting.
We did see a temporary halt in Houthi attacks against Israel and Red Sea shipping,
And the Houthis explicitly linked that pause directly to the Gaza ceasefire.
which just shows how interconnected all these regional conflicts truly are.
And there was also that historic high-level diplomatic engagement this week between the U.S. and Syrian President Ahmad al-Shara at the White House.
That's right. Now, Syria is still hesitant to fully join the Abraham Accords because of territorial disputes. But the fact that this direct high-level meeting is even happening,
It signals that de-escalation is a priority for key global players.
it does.
So after synthesizing all of these varied sources, from Fox News and the New York Post to Hurriyet and Al Jazeera, what does this whole complex picture actually mean?
Well, if you look for common ground, the consensus is really strong in one area.
And that is?
There is broad global agreement on the need for increased and unrestricted humanitarian aid into Gaza. That's supported by the UN, aid groups, and it resonates very strongly on social media.
But the core strategic divergence remains immovable.
Completely. Stability and reconstruction, which are critical for Israel and the U.S., they hinge on Hamas disarmament. But that's being rejected by Hamas and by Iran-backed proxies.
Which guarantees continued resistance to the ISF.
Exactly. So the synthesis shows the primary challenge. The humanitarian track is advancing, incrementally,
Yeah.
but the political track is completely deadlocked.
Because the Arab states have made it clear that aid and troops are conditional on political progress.
A path to Palestinian Authority governance and statehood, which, again, Israel outright rejects.
So looking ahead, what should we be watching for right now? What are the most likely events in the near future?
Two main things on the institutional front. First, watch for the final UN Security Council decisions on the ISF mandate and the deployment timeline.
Which is tentatively targeted for early 2026.
Right. Second, keep a very close eye on the U.S.-Saudi normalization talks. The key indicator will be if Saudi Arabia shows any willingness to soften its demand for Palestinian statehood.
And on the ground.
The continued monitoring by the U.S. Civil Military Coordination Center in Kiryat Gat will be essential. Their actions are the primary mechanism preventing this fragile ceasefire from collapsing.
Before we conclude, we do want to make sure you understand the technology that powered this whole custom intelligence brief.
Right. Stylo News is fundamentally changing how you can receive complex, actionable information.
Exactly. Stylo is a mobile and computer app that lets you download and instantly customize these personal intelligence style briefs. They're tailored to your specific needs.
So whether it's regional security, financial markets, emerging tech, the app handles the information overload for you.
It pulls data from hundreds of traditional news sources, from social media platforms like X, and converts all that raw data into reliable insights.
It uses advanced AI to cross-reference facts, triage your watch lists, and flag anomalies. It gives you clear, cited answers. It's like having a personal AI analyst working for you 24/7.
So if you want to get AI-powered news on demand, customized to your exact intelligence needs, we really encourage you to subscribe.
Visit www.stylonews.com today to start receiving your custom intelligence briefs.
That is going to wrap up our deep dive into these critical global developments. Thank you for joining us for this essential conversation.
And we encourage you to follow Stylo News on your favorite social media platforms. Please let us know which topics you'd like us to dissect for future deep dives. We are here to help you navigate the world's most complex issues with clarity.
And as we close, here's one final thought for you to consider based on the source material we analyzed today. Given the collapse of Israel's traditional defense paradigm and the rise of Turkey as a new, assertive regional power, a power now actively inserting itself into the Gaza stabilization discussion, how quickly will the delicate balance of power shift in the Middle East? And what implications does that hold for the long-term viability of an international stabilization effort designed by the U.S. and predicated on a consensus that, well, simply does not yet exist? We'll leave you with that.